Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Peter Barber. I'm a professional opera singer and music producer, and today, after so many recommendations, I am going to be analyzing Luciano Pavarotti's performance of Nessun Dorma from Turandot. You know, when Pav was, he was in his prime all the time. Like, the guy sounds so good in every performance I've ever heard. Truly my favorite operatic tenor of all time. So I'm really excited to dig into this performance. This is a reaction and analysis, so I will of course be pausing to talk about his brilliant vocal technique. Without further ado, Luciano Pavarotti singing Nessun Dorma. I mean, just the first note that comes out of his mouth is just this flawless, easy production. I think this is on a D4. Yep. Nessun Dorma. Now you can tell, I mean, by the time Pav gets down to that D3, it's getting towards the bottom of his usable chest range. And this is actually really common for tenors in opera, especially once they've warmed up, to be able to sing something like Nessun Dorma with a huge high B natural at the end. They often will lose a lot of their low register because there's just no use for it as an operatic tenor. You got to put all your money in the big high notes. I mean, that is what everyone wants to hear. That's what you're getting paid for. If you drop a low note at the very bottom of a moving passage, no one's going to care. So if you have a long sustained low note like this D here, you're going to want to make sure that's in your range. But anything really below that, it's not really usable. It's not really necessary most of the time. There are a few tenor arias that have lower notes, but just the vocal production on this very first phrase is already stunning. Now, even though this is the very middle of his range. Notice how on this first pitch, he doesn't go straight to that nah. He actually like morphs the vowel into it. Probably doing this because at this part in his range, it's probably easier for him to make a cleaner sound with a slightly more closed vowel position, like n, u, somewhere in there. It's probably really easy and clean. So if he starts there just for a second, that allows his voice to engage in the way he wants it before opening up to that bigger vowel, the ne of Nessun Dorma. So it just kind of allows him to really find his resonance. And this is something opera singers are doing all the time. What we're doing all the time is making extremely fine adjustments to our tongue, to our laryngeal position, to our lips, to maximize the resonance of the sound. Because you have to remember, in opera, most of the time, this is a concert performance, so it's a little different, but in opera, most of the time, you're singing with a full orchestra without a microphone. So you have to be thinking about maximizing sound and maximizing resonance. So this is one little window into that, a little bit of vowel shaping and vowel modification. You have to just pay close attention to how consistent the color of his sound is. I mean, from the first line all the way through all these first phrases, it's like just a beautiful column of sound top to bottom. The colors stay the same. Unless Pav wants to change the color intentionally for an effect, it's going to be very much the same color throughout. That's the kind of idea behind bel canto training, is singing with one voice, having the same color, as much as you can, the same kind of power and resonance throughout. Now, of course, the power is going to change as you get up higher in your range. You can't sing as loud in your low range as you can in your high range if you're trained well. It's just not possible. But you want to try to keep it consistent. You still want to be very resonant on the low notes, even though your big high notes should be much, much, much louder. And also, one way that an opera singer can maintain that color throughout is to try to keep a relatively neutral mouth position. The Italians call this raccogliere la bocca, meaning to collect the mouth. So instead of for every vowel you're doing, the most extreme version of that vowel, you really want to be using the tongue for most of the vowel shaping so that your mouth overall can stay in a similar position. You want to keep the back of the tongue out of the throat so that it doesn't block any sound. And beyond that, you use the tongue to create the vowels so that your mouth can stay relatively neutral, usually in a little bit of like a frown position. That helps a lot of singers. It's been helping me a lot lately, actually, with my singing. And so you see Pav do that as well. So just keep an eye on his mouth, how it's staying in the relatively same position as he goes through. So there's obviously a difference between pure and a, but it's not a super closed oo, and it's not like a big open bright a. It's like o and a. So he's collecting, raccogliere la bocca. He's collecting the mouth towards the kind of neutral position. You notice he does do a big like a bottom mouth, kind of creating a triangle with his mouth a little bit on that one ah vowel, and that's a great example of, because it's hard to explain. He's creating a certain mouth shape that creates a certain color that keeps it more towards that neutral position. If he sings that ah like ah, then that vowel is going to fall out of line with the rest of the vowels. But by singing ah like ah, it keeps that warmer color to it, and it keeps it more in line with the vowels that have come before and the vowels that have come after. It's really hard to go from an oo or an e vowel to an ah vowel and have it not fall out of line. And that's the goal with what he's going for here. One smooth legato line, one voice top to bottom. That F sharp is right about in Pavarotti's secondo passaggio is what it's called, the second passage of the male voice in this case. And you can actually hear the head. So he collects the mouth, so he creates a small mouth shape, and he allows the resonance to go up towards his head resonance to come out. This is different than what you'd call falsetto or a head voice. That's a register. I'm talking about head resonance. Where the sound literally starts to resonate on a higher placement in the head. And this just happens naturally as you ascend. Now, what you want to do is you want to let that happen. You don't want to force the singing up and bringing more chest resonance up into your head resonance, or it's going to get yelly. It's not sustainable singing a big operatic tenor role, which this is. You want to let that resonance travel where it is. And a great way to do that is you basically keep sending the breath. You keep using this phenomenal breath support that Pavarotti has. You collect the mouth and you allow that resonance shift to happen. It happens on this high F sharp, and that's going through his second passaggio. Right there. So it's not guardi, it's guardi. Guardi, not guardi, which would be more true to the actual Italian vowel. Pavarotti's an Italian-born singer. Like, he knows the perfect vowels to sing. He's a fluent Italian speaker. He intentionally does guardi instead of guardi because that's helping that resonance shift. That's helping him navigate through that second passage, which is notoriously one of the hardest things to figure out how to do well as an opera singer, is navigating that second passaggio. Right here. And look how close that guar, that the mouth position for the ah and guar is to that e that comes next. It's not guardi, it's guardi. It's almost the same exact position. That's what I'm talking about. It's a big thing in Italian singing is to allow allow your vowel to morph into the proper vowel. Even on he does like, instead of he goes Part of this is like an emotional thing too. It allows for a little more legato. It allows for a little more connection between the words and sliding from word to word. And this is actually, you can use this as a tool for legato singing, meaning basically smooth singing, and as a tool for emotion, because you can put it into like a slide in the way you connect between the notes. So it's really interesting though. Fluent Italian singer, fluent Italian speaker, but you see him messing with the Italian vowels to better contribute to the singing and to the emotion. That one right there. Eddie. Gets me every time. I love listening to this man sing. And there's so much to talk about with what he's doing here. So we're gonna go back. He just used a nose breath. Sometimes that can help people get their larynx in the right position and to not take in too much air. That's a huge problem with opera singers. It's a problem I have dealt with and am dealing with is over breathing before you sing. If you breathe too much, you get too much buildup in the air here. It's called subglottic pressure, and that can do a lot of things. That can do a lot of negative things to your sound. Most notably, just like an over compressed kind of forced sound. And so you see Pav go, so he takes this tiny little breath through his nose, gets his larynx in the right position, and doesn't over breathe. Isabel Leonard is a very famous, successful mezzo-soprano that I had a vocal coaching with her a few years ago, and that was a big thing she was recommending. It's just a little, instead of, if you know how to breathe, if you know how to get the deep breath, you don't have to breathe through your mouth. You can absolutely get it breathing through your nose. And that for some singers, that really works to kind of set up the right positioning for everything. So watch that, a little nose breath from Pav. So this is, you can literally, so he's starting on the D there. So the D is very much still in his It's between his first and second passage. So he doesn't have to navigate the resonance. He doesn't really have to collect the mouth too carefully. Listen to the change in sound, the change in resonance as he goes through the ascending passages. You can literally hear the resonance shifting from a lower chest resonance, a place of chest resonance, to it sounds smaller in the recording as it ascends up to the head resonance. It sounds smaller in the recording. If you were standing next to him, it would also sound smaller, but in the back of the theater, it would not, because he maintains the squealo and the cut in the sound. He allows the resonance to go where it wants to naturally, and that allows your voice sustainably, is a really important thing, sustainably to keep cutting to the back of the house. A couple of my mentors at the Academy of Vocal Arts, which is truly considered by many to be maybe the greatest training program on the planet for young professional opera singers, a number of them have worked with Pavarotti, did work with Pav in the past. A lot of them are rather elderly, extremely experienced coaches. And they said when Pav was singing on a big operatic stage, if you were next to him, his voice didn't sound all that big. But if you were in the very back of the Metropolitan Opera or a house the size of Arizona Opera, which is like 2,300 seats, smaller than the Met, it would sound like he was sitting right next to you, singing in your ear, because he had so much cut and squeal in the sound that all those high frequencies just shred through the orchestra and go straight to your eardrum. And that is because Pav knew how to use his resonance. He knew not to oversing. He knew not to overbreathe. He just got really good vocal fold closure, got his tongue out of the way. Impeccable breath support. He did a ton of extensive breath exercises before singing and allowed that resonance to shift, and that allows that ping without a lot of effort to zing all the way to the back of the house. Now just pay attention to this resonance shifting as he goes up. That just absolutely perfect up to that tenor high A. And watch, he's not doing big mouth up there. He's collecting the mouth, racorere la boca, and he's allowing that resonance. It sounds like it's shooting out of a tiny mouth in his forehead. I had a coach in my undergrad that used to tell us use tiny mouth, and that was a way for us to think about trying to get the resonance to come out of here. Hey, instead of a more chesty resonance when you get up to that part of your range, especially going into the second passage and above the second passage. And it's absolutely textbook here. He goes up, you feel the resonance shifting, he gets up to those high A's, he maintains a neutral mouth position and allows that resonance to shift, and it sounds like a less weighty sound, but it is absolutely zinging to the back of whatever audience he's singing for right now. Now, of course, this performance is microphoned, because he's probably in an absolutely gargantuan space, because it's a three tenors concert in 1994. But this is exactly how he would sing it unmiked in an opera house too. He would not change his technique to sing with mic. That's not how it works for opera singers. You can see him making absolutely miniature adjustments to his mouth and tongue as he's sustaining that pitch, because he's so well trained. This is what you have to do as a professional opera singer. In very real time, you basically have to have, it's got to be muscle memory, it has to be instincts, but you are making tiny adjustments to always be looking for the maximum resonance, because it's so critical when you're singing with an orchestra without microphones. And so you can watch him. He's doing tiny little mouth shape shifts, little tongue shifts, all to make sure that he's continuing to find the best resonance possible. So splendero. Look at that vowel. It's not spla, it's spl. It's a very collected mouth position, and you can hear absolute pure head resonance. He's singing softly on that E. So if he's singing at that dynamic on that E4, he's going to use a lot of head resonance. It's just below his second passage. So if he was singing forte, for example, much louder, he could easily sing that in full chest voice without needing to shift into head resonance. But because he's singing it softly, he's adopting more head resonance. And what does this allow him to do? It allows him, even while singing softly, for that sound to carry all the way to the back of the house, which is what you need. Your pianos, your mezzo pianos, your mezzo fortes, your fortes, all your dynamics need to be carrying to the back of the house. You don't have the luxury in an operatic performance to have a microphone amplifying your soft singing. Your soft singing has to be very well connected to your breath support and still has to have resonance. Unless there's absolutely nothing happening in the orchestra. I mean, literally nothing. If there are any instruments playing, those soft sounds have to cut. So he got louder, he opened up his mouth a little bit, went more into the chest connection. So you'll notice in his lower range, he doesn't think as much about collecting the mouth. He doesn't think about creating that neutral space. Kind of the closer you get down to your natural speaking voice range, you can absolutely do things to increase the resonance, to maximize the sound, but you generally don't have to do as much. It's not as complicated. For you to sing down in your natural speaking voice, where he's getting down close to in this moment, he can sing generally more true to the vowels and not have to worry about it. He doesn't have to worry as much about vowel modification or formant tuning, which is a whole other can of worms. He can be a little bit more natural. Listen to this first phrase in the second verse. And when he gets up into the high range again, listen to that resonance shift. That's kind of like the TLDR of this performance, is like watching that resonance shift from really chesty to really head resonant. Even that sound would cut, believe it or not. Not yet, because we're going to need a whole section for the just appreciating the high B. Now, just notice his approach to this same melody, same text as before. You'll notice his mouth is a bit bigger here because he's letting it rip, as I like to call it. He's ripping face, we call it sometimes. It's a fun way to call singing big high notes. Because he's allowing more chest connection, he's opening up his mouth more. If he were just optimizing for the head resonance, he would again be collecting the mouth like he did the first time through. But because we're going into this big epic moment, he's allowing more power, more sound. He's bringing up a little more of that chest resonance, so he's opening his mouth a little bit more. I'm talking specifically about that long string of high A's, high tenor A's there. His mouth is more open. You can feel him. It's a little more yelly, right? It's a little more like a yell quality as opposed to like a kind of pinpointed head resonance quality. And it makes perfect sense given the context of what's happening in the piece at this moment. We're getting to the climax of this piece. He's revving up. He's bringing some more of that chest resonance up, and still extremely efficient with the head resonance. But the blend of the two is a little more towards chest in this second rendition here. Still making minor adjustments. One thing about that E vowel, so it's not E, he's going E. So he's rounding the lips, he's extending the vocal tract, and that creates a warmer, darker color. While if your tongue is out of the way and you have good vocal fold closure, you're still going to have all the cut in the world, all the squealo, but you'll see a lot of, almost all the time in opera, if a singer is singing E, like an Italian E vowel, it will be shaped more like a French U, because that allows you to sing the E. The audience will understand it as an E vowel, but the color will be warmer and darker, and it will be more in line with the rest of the vowels you're singing. Again, finding that neutral position. Watch this E. So instead of E, vincerò, it's vincerò. And you can see how little my mouth had to move to navigate between those syllables. Okay, and now we listen to the high B. When that is sung well, it is one of the greatest moments in opera. Period. I will get emotional every time I hear Pavarotti sing this. Not when I hear any tenor sing it, but when I hear Pav sing it, it's really, really special. I still don't think anyone's done it better. Okay, what's he doing? Perfect example of keeping the mouth neutral. Letting the resonance shift up into the head. You can hear it clearly. You can clearly hear him releasing some of the chest resonance and opting purely for head resonance. It's like it's coming out of here. So what he does here is he collects the mouth just for a second when he gets to that really high B. And then once he knows he has it, which he knows immediately he's got it, then he opens it up and goes to like the classic big tenor belt mouth. Once he's found the place for it, he opens it up and he just absolutely funnels all his power through that note. Because once he's got it locked in, he can just rip it. And this moment absolutely calls for that if you can get away with it. And what's so exciting is if he sang the high B with really opting just for pure head resonance, it wouldn't be as exciting for us, because what is so exciting about a big tenor high note and this kind of repertoire where it's like a big voice lyric tenor is you're not really sure every time if they're going to really nail this high note. I mean, even Pavarotti had nights when he cracked on this high note, right? We don't see many of those recordings, but that happened. Even the greatest singers of all time will crack on these notes, as opposed to if like a really high Rossini tenor, like a Juan Diego Flores or a Lawrence Brownlee, if they're singing this aria, they're never going to crack on the high B. Like that is it's absolute cake for them. But a bigger voice, a full lyric sound or a dramatic tenor sound, you don't really know you're not really confident when they get up to the high B and high C if they're going to nail it. That's why this moment here, Puccini, Turandot, is so exciting and iconic, and it's why the big high C in Bohème from Rodolfo in Act... Is it Act 1? I think it is Act 1. Yes, it is Act 1. The big high C on La Speranza. That huge high C is really exciting because you really aren't ever sure if the tenor is going to get there. So he finds the position, he opens it up, he lets her rip, he funnels all the power and holds this note all the way to the end. Stays in the moment. Absolutely stunning. Let's get this whole final bit again. I just watched it a second ago and I'm already emotional again. Just get emotional on repeat. Oh my gosh, guys, this is really fun. I mean, obviously I can talk all day about opera and operatic technique because it is so fine-grained and nuanced. And it's what I do professionally. So if you'd like to see more analyses of big famous opera arias, I'd love to do it. Leave a comment below, leave a like. Please leave all your suggestions for what you'd like to see me analyze, opera or otherwise. If you gained appreciation for Pavarotti's beautiful, so calculated, stunning singing, please consider joining my Patreon community. We'd love to have you over there. Or you can do a one-time donation with Buy Me a Coffee in the description. Also, check out all the affiliate links. There's some great stuff down there. And guys, I hope to see you in the next Luciano Pavarotti video. I would love to do more for this amazing singer. Otherwise, see you soon. Bye-bye.